Running 101.
Running 101.
Running 101. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Running 101. A quick update from me. The Berlin Marathon was almost 3 weeks ago, and I have to be honest, it was brutal. I still feel like I'm coming to terms with it all. If I was asked to explain how it all went on the day, and to be honest, I have been asked once or twice what exactly happened out there, my response has just been, you really had to be out there to get a feel of it. Words really can't really describe. I mean, I can explain the conditions and how I felt and everything, but probably won't put the nail on the head. I might be going a bit OTT, but hopefully time will tell when it starts settling in and start feeling some of that humbleness. Not feeling it quite just yet. Yeah, so that's a quick update from me. But today we have a fellow runner joining us who started running during their school years, however, only rekindled their desire to run about 3 years ago. They have since aimed to keep things consistent, build their way up as they aim to tackle a few marathons going forward, all while keeping their targets and milestones realistic, which is great. Earlier this year, they ran the Stockholm Marathon in May, and more recently, the Berlin Marathon a few weeks ago, where we actually met. Azhar, welcome to Running 101.
Hey, Naz, thank you for having me.
No, thank you so much for putting some time aside. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Obviously, we met during the expo, which was it was a really pleasure meeting you at that point in time. Got a bit of an insight into what you've been up to and what your targets were and stuff. So, yeah, no, thank you in advance.
No, more than welcome. And yeah, great to meet you. It feels like a lifetime ago already. Can't believe it's only been three and a bit weeks.
Sure. So how have things been for you lately?
All right. I think similar to your introduction, Berlin was brutal. There's no other way for me to describe it. I think fortunately my recovery seems to have been a bit quicker than Stockholm was. So hopefully some lessons learned in that instance. But, good. And then tried to get back into a cadence of running into a regular rhythm. But with winter coming up, then that will be easier said than done. But all intents and purposes, good. Otherwise, thank you.
Good stuff. Good to hear that. Let's talk about Berlin. Just wanted to go into how it actually was for you. I mean, to be honest, like you just heard me say, and you're from your side, it sounds quite similar as well at the same time too. But have you been able to kind of pick up and understand what exactly? I mean, conditions, yeah, they were brutal out there, and to be honest, that's the key word that I'm using again and again. Anything else that you brought back with yourself in terms of how you feel about it?
When so during the race, which we'll come on to, I think it hit me sort of quite hard, and then afterwards I was quite disappointed with the time, but I think I was fortunate in a sense that I was running for charity and my target was raised and surpassed, which was good, and that gave me a good level of context. So it was the fact that I was able to finish it. It was the fact that I was able to raise the money for the charity that I was running for, which was the most important part. Then I was fortunate that I quickly got over my disappointment, etc., of the time and the challenge, and also took solace from the fact that a lot of other people found the conditions quite hard as well. So it took me a few days, etc., but thankfully now in a better place, let's say.
Okay, while we're on the topic, would you like to share the charity with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I ran for Save the Children. So I did Stockholm in May, and then Berlin I got through with Save the Children. So I've run with them once before, may well do something again with them, but there was a group of about 9-10 of us. I bumped into probably 2 or 3 other people in the course whilst I was running. So yeah, really cool charity, doing a lot of great work for people, not just in the UK, but globally as well.
Well done on hitting your target there, by the way. I mean, that's a good way to reflect, to be honest.
Thank you.
Myself, I was there with, I again, ran with charity over there too, Charity Right. And it's probably a good time to point out quite a lot of us were able to come together, get our targets, and go above and beyond where possible, which was great. At the end of the day, it's for a good cause too. All about bringing food, shelter, general well-being to children in various regions around the world. So quite similar to what you were running for over there too. So No, well done once again on that. So Azhar, tell us a bit about yourself.
So I've been running in anger, let's say, for probably about 2.5 years or so. I used to do a fair bit of cross country, etc., at school, and then tailed off. And then I did London 2016. So that was a while ago now, but amazing. I think the crowds there were phenomenal. So got the bug then. And then I've always kept on with running, but nothing to a huge extent. And last year, Christmas, I did that really cringeworthy thing, which most people in their 30s do. They say, right, I need to accomplish something next year. What do I want to do? I was like, right, let me try and do 2 marathons. So signed up to Stockholm, which was amazing. And then Berlin. I think I vastly underestimated not the training itself, but probably the recovery between Stockholm and Berlin, which was tough. But yeah, full of running, which I love, and now taking stock and seeing if I get back into it. I think the fact that I've now done, was it 2 of the big 6, that sort of challenge of ticking them all off is invariably there, but I'm not quite at that level of momentum yet as to, right, is that something I want to try to tick off? But alas, we'll see where we get to.
Yeah, no, definitely a good target to have, and all you can do is just aim for the best and hope it falls into place. Just going back into London, I mean, that was pre-COVID when you ran in 2016. What was your journey like, or your build up towards that?
So that the training for that was probably not as seamless as we would have wanted it to have been. Removing house, sort of moving into a new area, and again, then the heat was quite hot. Not as bad as it was for this year, which from what I hear was quite extortionate. But the challenge there more so was the changing in conditions. So it started off quite cold, then warmed up a bit, and it was more when you go through the tunnels, like Blackwall Tunnel, I think we are going through,
Sure,
and
sure.
then there it hit you. So that was tough. But I remember quite vividly when I was speaking to a colleague, they gave me one bit of advice, and they said, right, whatever you do, make sure you write down your name on your vest in really big letters. And I was like, well, not sure what difference that would make. But since then, I really, really get it. I've never had that feeling where you have total strangers shouting out your name and wishing you nothing but the best, with the utmost level of genuine respect and care and well wishes for you. So that momentum definitely got me over the line there. So I didn't really have a time in mind for London. It was more completing it, and that again was for charity, which I loved. But yeah, there's a reason people say London's the greatest, and it is that the crowds there. Whilst I've only done sort of 3 marathons, definitely the one that's had the biggest impact on me.
No, well done, and it's good to hear about the experience. To be honest, if I was to reflect myself a bit, I've only been running for like the last 5 years, and if I was to say, it's great to hear how that's one thing that hasn't changed from 2016 all the way to running it almost 9 years later. It's great to know that the crowds are still as active and bring that energy with them as they did back then. I mean, I say back then, making it sound like it was an awful lot of time ago. Obviously, it's not, but I'm just saying things have changed since then, right? 2016 was pre-COVID, obviously, and it's just a good feel that when things kind of went quiet, but then they've come back with a bang too. So yeah, that crowd just goes wild, and it goes a long way. It really helps you get through those 42 kilometers, I feel. How have things changed from that time to now? Again, I'm not trying to put you in a space where you feel like you're ancient or something, but a lot has changed, and you've probably seen that boom since COVID, right?
Yeah, I'd probably say the popularity of running has invariably really blown up over the last 3 years or so, which I think is good for most intents and purposes. The level of attention to detail that's probably paid to, or not paid to, but I guess more people are paying to preparation, recovery, actually training in the day is a fair amount. So those are probably the main bits, and I think the amount of choice that's out there. So I spent probably too much time that I should have done thinking, right, what's the best running gear that I need to get, both in terms of shoes, what gel should I have, etc. When I did London, it wasn't anywhere near as popular a marketplace
commercial,
for those
competitive
kinds,
as well. Yeah,
commercialized. Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way of summarizing. That's probably the main thing that's changed.
another thing that we've noticed out there is the representation of all different types of communities out there too, from
Hmm.
different backgrounds, different cultures, and everyone's got the key goals and one thing in common, and it's all so much more welcoming. And you can definitely reflect on the change that's happened post COVID.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think I particularly saw that with Stockholm and Berlin. Both of the types of runners who were there, in terms of those who were professional, those who just wanted to finish, those who had somewhat of a time in place, the broadness in terms of the costumes, which then particularly came up in Berlin. Who did I see? I saw someone who was dressed up as a men's deodorant bottle who beat me, which was quite shameful, but equally take on the chin. There was someone who's dressed up as a dolphin. There's a huge variety. I think London definitely has the broadest, but I think the level of inclusivity and community that's now driven through running is a great thing. I think that's been a huge benefit for it, and that's not just for marathons, but I think training overall. So run clubs are popping up left, right, and centre. I joined my first one probably earlier on in the summer, and I wasn't hugely keen on the concept of it, but now that I had joined it and joined a few, I loved it. I think it was great.
Yeah, and again, they're very welcoming, and you meet all kinds of people there, whether you're just out there to train or whether you're there for networking. I feel there's a good sense of belonging that all these run clubs bring to you, and you can turn up to one, you can turn up to five if you want. You get the same sort of vibe. Sometimes you're lucky enough to bump into the same people again and again. But yeah, I feel that they really help in keeping this whole culture going, and it's very inviting as well, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely.
So obviously you started running, and then you even went all the way to like run London. And then it's obviously, I guess it's about finding that balance, right, between work, life, other aspects to it too, need to prioritize. How does that all work for you?
With great difficulty, I would say. So with Stockholm, when I signed up for that, I probably started training for that in January. The race was in May, and I've got two young daughters, and I wanted to make sure that my time with them wasn't compromised, and also quite busy with work. So a lot of my training would be done first thing in the morning, which is good. It's a good way for me to start the day, wouldn't impact anyone else's time. But when it got closer to the race, I need to get in my longer runs, then it effectively wipes out one of your weekend mornings or afternoons. That was quite difficult to try to manage. But I managed to get through it. In hindsight, I probably could have been a little bit more regimented or direct with what was there, but everyone needs to find their own way and route. I was fortunate that I had quite a good running route that I would always go down, and the bit that I really learned from Stockholm, and probably even for Berlin, that I didn't do as much of, was split training, as well as taking on my gels and fuel. So I was able to probably do a half marathon without taking anything on board. But if it's any longer than that, then I start to flag, and I didn't do as many runs as I should have done, taking on gels and liquids and supplements whilst I was running. So I did a couple of those pre-Berlin, which helped me. But going forwards, I know definitely my longer runs I need to prepare a lot more for. But the other bit which I enjoyed was adding a fair bit of variability to my training. So whether that would be HIIT classes or gym weights, and making sure that it's not just running over and over again. And I found that helped and improved my technique as well as recovery as well.
In your training that you mentioned there, did you obviously, when you're talking about weights and stuff, did you factor in like strength training, conditioning, that sort of training
I did,
too?
yeah, a fair amount. So nothing that was too regimented, again, let's say, but I did have a fair amount that was in there. I think as one for training both for the marathon, but I think also mentally it just kept me quite refreshed and motivated, so I wasn't doing the same level of training over and over again. I think in hindsight I could have been a bit more stringent with the type of training I was doing and the timing for it, but my recovery, I learned, was hugely important. I've always been quite keen on making sure that warm up and warm down is good, and I also invested in a couple of sports massages, which made a huge difference to me as well. So I think getting into that rhythm whilst I'm training will be something that I'll look to do going forward as well.
Do you think all of this made a difference? I mean, brought a positive to to how you took on Stockholm and then Berlin later on?
Yes, I'd say it did. The slight hesitancy, I would say, is Berlin. I think I struggled a fair bit with my recovery after Stockholm and then getting back into a rhythm for Berlin, but that I knew was going to be part of the challenge of doing 2 marathons in 4 months.
Hmm.
And I think for Berlin, I actively tried to take on more, or even tried different gels because I found that some worked for me, some didn't, and I wanted to get through as many as I could to find what would work with me. So yeah, I think it did definitely help me, particularly more so for Berlin than it did for Stockholm.
Yeah, in terms of fueling over there, I think that's a valid point that you mentioned there, that you need to go through that exercise of doing a little bit of experimentation during your training to see what suits your palate best. And yeah, some go down well, some don't, and you just need to kind of work out what suits you best. To be honest, there's no one right answer or one right product that might work best for you, because one week it might suit yourself fine, and then next week you feel like you're getting a few issues in the gut and stuff. So yeah, a bit of experimentation required there, I guess.
Yeah, and I really messed it up during Stockholm because I think for the first half of the marathon I was good. I was on my target pace. I was keeping hydrated, but then the heat and the hills came, and then I just started flagging. So it got a bit of a fair amount of desperation. I just started taking on board whatever fluids and support was on the side. So I went through everything from Coke to Red Bulls to gels to they
Wow.
had like pickled cucumber and apples. And that is in hindsight, that is a big regret of mine and something that I learned for in Berlin, which whilst my time went to pot, I was quite strict with what I would and wouldn't take on. Because if it's something that I tried, then I'd take it. But like a pickled cucumber or pickled apple whilst running, yes, might be native in Stockholm, but absolutely ruined my gut when I was running there. So I was a lot more stringent with what I was doing, but lesson learned going forward.
Yeah, I guess unfortunately that's what it takes for us to kind of work our way forward and kind of be strict with what we want to do, what we don't want to do, what works and what doesn't. Some of that pickled stuff doesn't sound too good though. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm
no,
surprised you even gave it a go.
it probably shows more about the desperation as to where I was after like kilometer
True, true,
35
true.
more so
Yeah.
than anything else.
No, definitely it does play on your mind. Just past halfway or 3/4 of the way there, it's quite surprising actually, because on a normal day you just think you've got everything straight and you know exactly what you're going to go ahead with.
Yep.
So, Azhar, we've talked about some of your experiences there. In terms of good experiences and achievements, what would you say are the key ones?
Stockholm, hugely proud of. I think going into it at a
Even though
time
you
of,
tried all that pickled stuff, yeah?
even though I tried all that pickle stuff, yeah, I think I went in with a target of sub 4:30, and then I knew quite quickly that I was on target for that, and if not, could better it. And then I finished 4:02, which I was super happy
Oh,
with because it
amazing.
was
Nice.
well under target, but equally a bit disappointed because it wasn't quite under 4 hours. But yeah, Stockholm was amazing. I think if I had been a bit more strict with my fueling during and maybe before, then that would have helped. And two of my good friends came out to support me. So I saw them at kilometer 10 and then at I think mile 24. So that was really good. And the crowd in Stockholm were amazing. We can speak about the comparison to Berlin in a bit, but the crowd in Stockholm were phenomenal. And I've been to Stockholm a couple of times before. It's a city that I loved. So Stockholm, yeah, really, really, really proud of that. And the time was great. And it was quite cool because at the start line, I met someone and started speaking to them, and we both had like a similar time in mind. We probably ran together for the first kilometer or so, then we sort of missed each other. Then it got to the final mile, and then we both sort of bumped into each other again. So being able to finish with them was really cool. So that was quite nice. So yeah, Stockholm was probably the highlight. Berlin, proud that I was done. Great that it was one of the big six. But yeah, as we said at the beginning, that was brutal. Really, really tough.
Would you recommend Stockholm?
Hugely, absolutely. I think both the crowds were there. The route's really cool. It takes you through the entire city. You then get to go through some of the nature parts that they've got in there. So yeah, I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's looking to get started.
You mentioned you visited there a few times too, so I guess you do have you do have a liking towards it as well in general. Okay, I can see how it might have meant a lot to you to run the marathon over there.
Yeah, the affiliation there, and I think equally the route is pretty good. So it got the what you're running through, and there weren't besides when you're going through some of the parks which are a bit further out, you had good crowds all the way through. Whereas with Berlin, I found it a bit stop-start, whereas the crowd was sustained all the way through, and particularly in the middle of the city, there'd be about 4 or 5 people deep at some of the most popular points. So that made a huge difference as well.
Just going to ask something about Berlin. Has that changed what you think of fast and flat?
It's a really good question. I think fast, probably difficult to comment on because I've only really got Stockholm to compare to, and maybe London, which was a while ago. So nothing too much in that instance. Flat, it was pretty flat. I know I've spoken to a few people around it who said that it wasn't, but I would say it was. There was only maybe a couple of small inclines and declines that I recall, but overall, yeah, it was quite flat. Again, difficult to mention too much on the pace because it went to pot for me quite early on, but it was definitely quite flat, I would say, yeah, especially compared to Stockholm. London has a few that I can recall, but compared to Stockholm and from many others, yeah, I think the only other one that people have said is super flat is Amsterdam. Again, not one of the big six, but a few other people have mentioned that's quite a flat and a good race to go for if you're after a PB.
I think we might have to sign up to Chicago and then we'll be able to answer that question properly,
Yeah,
right?
precisely. Yeah.
Oh, good stuff. Okay, so over the years, obviously, like you ran your marathon first in 2016, and then you kept the running going, the training going. Obviously, you ran 2 marathons this year, and you were keeping like a fair amount of strength training going on at the same time too. Any injuries that might have helped with, or any injuries that you have had in the past that you've just tried to put behind you or work over?
Yes, I've had quite a few football injuries from sort of teenage years. So, like left kneecap, and I've dislocated and snapped my cartilage. So in winter, particular, I can feel that. So I've been quite the same. Fortunately, I've been quite lucky that hasn't really hampered anything for running, but I do feel it every now and then. So that's something that I'm cognizant of. I didn't really have any whilst I was running, which I was quite fortunate with. I think the main bit that I was very wary of was my diet, both in terms of how much I was eating, what I was eating, and refueling. So that was quite a big one. And then in terms of wider strength training, I guess I tailored the amount of workouts, the type of exercise that I was doing, particularly when it got closer to race week. I found it quite difficult, not sure about you, but to lessen the amount that you're doing the closer it gets to race week. Like if you haven't put the work in, then it's too late, like 2-3 weeks beforehand, but then equally not running for a long period of time beforehand, I found quite odd. But I think that again is quite it's each to their own, because I know a few people I spoke to, they were doing like a 30k run the weekend before Berlin, which I found to just be a bit mad, if I'm being completely honest. But as I look, if it works for them, then it works for them. So again, I think, as you mentioned at the beginning, everyone takes their own route as to what works for them and what doesn't.
When you mentioned that, for me, I just start thinking about you're supposed to be in a taper space at that time, right? So why would you be running like a 20 mile at that point in time? But yeah, to each their own, whatever work. As part of my training, I made the most of the taper weeks. I mean, seriously, like took a step back and just took it a bit easy, like I was supposed to. Stuck to my plan as best as I could. And to be honest, if I was to do a comparison, I was able to be more strict with my plan for London earlier this year because it was the first one. Not going to say I took my foot off the pedal for Berlin, but it was the summertime, school holidays, family priorities, and like balancing everything around. It was more challenging, I would say, the second time round, but I won't say I was totally off my plan either.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think the because there's now like a few people I work with are into running as well, which is great. But the bit that we say is that everyone just finds their own route and what they're happy with, and I'm quite conscious of not talking too much to people about their times unless they actively bring it up, because I know some people can think, oh, it's bad or it's good in comparison to others, but it's all relative. A good time for one person might be bad for another, and vice versa. So I think timing, unless you're hugely competitive, you know who it is that you're running with, I tend to keep that quite personable, because the main thing is that everyone's running, they've got their goals in mind and they're able to hit them and they're happy with it. It doesn't really matter what other people think.
Having come back and shared how I felt with quite a few people, or those who were backing us, supporting us all the way, tracking us on the day, which I can't express how much gratitude I feel for them supporting us all the way. It goes a long way, like I said. One thing that played on my mind was being away from home at the same time too. I mean, you think you'll be absolutely fine because it's just going for another run. But I feel being away from home really makes a difference. And any marathon or any run away from home might have the same challenges coming our way too.
Yeah,
Would you agree with
I
that?
would. So I found a big difference between going out to Stockholm. I had a couple of friends who were out there with me, so that helped both in terms of the preparation before as well as sharing that enjoyment afterwards. And then in Berlin, it was great. I was able to meet you before the race, which was helpful. I managed to bump into a few other people in the running community afterwards, who was able to have a good meal within the evening. So I think that was good, and had a fair amount of support back home as well. But I think it definitely does make an impact having support there. And I did underestimate probably the emotional aspect of that, both in terms of support, congratulations, etc., which was there.
One thing that I actually received from many people was, it was just good that you to just think about it this way, you were able to finish in the end. I mean, I always thought I would finish, or you just think everyone's going to finish anyway. So at some point, time comes into play, and you're just thinking, wow, I took much longer than I actually wanted to. And whoever I was speaking to, they were like, yeah, but you finished. Just think about it this way: you started, you drove all the way through, and you finished in the end. And that's probably the biggest takeaway you should have from this.
It's a great perspective to have, because even when I got to, what was it? I think it was maybe about mile 7 where I realized, I think that's where I hit the ball. I was like, I'm spent. I cannot do this. But I was purposefully right. Let me continue. And I also had like a running vest on me, but I even had to get rid of that because it was just too hot. So I was able to cool down, because I think I was overheated, and I managed to sort of continue, because I was like, right, if I stop, then I'm not going to be able to go again. So I managed to get back into a rhythm and a routine, and I almost take it for granted as to, right, but everyone trains for a marathon, everyone's going to be able to finish. But as you get along, you see more and more people weren't able to. So I think the achievement of actually having completed it isn't something to be underestimated at all. Yeah, once I realized my time had gone, I was like, right, I'm definitely going to finish, whether I walk, crawl, whatever it's going to be. When my target time had gone, I was like, right, the overall objective is finishing, getting that medal and getting across the line. So yeah, 100%. Everyone who gave you that counsel and guidance is 100% spot on.
It's good to know that you've kind of just come to terms with it. I think I just need slightly longer. But one thing I'm going to go back to is, I mean, I know, like, having run 2 marathons, you mentioned in the space of 4 months for yourself. I'll probably say 5 months for myself, having done London in the same year too. And just going back to the recovery point where you said if you were to compare the two, it took slightly longer for you after Stockholm than it did around the Berlin time. Do you think, I mean, I agree with you, because I felt similar. Do you think it was because we had actually stretched our bodies a couple of months earlier? So it was kind of like, what would you call it, muscle memory sort of thing?
I think it is that. I think the fact that we'd already been through that pain helped. I think the other bit definitely for me was I paid a lot more attention to stretching properly that evening, and also carving up quite heavily, which I enjoyed. And I also ate like an absolute horse for the whole week after Stockholm, which I was felt a bit guilty for. But then when I did the maths, I was all right, the amount of calories that I've burnt out, I could give myself some some headspace to be able to eat whatever hell that is that I want. So yeah, I'd say that, but I definitely took a lot more attention to carving up quite quickly afterwards, because I don't think I did as quickly or as much after Stockholm.
Also, I would probably say that any lessons learned from London, I definitely made sure I put them to good use for Berlin, in terms of not just fueling up before, but fueling up after too, and having the right supplements to support me afterwards based on how I felt just during and after London as well, a couple of months
I'm with you on
earlier.
that.
Okay, so someone starting today, Azhar, I mean, where should they start? What advice would you give them, having run pre-COVID, post-COVID, seeing the changes that you have seen? And yeah, I'll follow through with what you would do differently. But let's start with what advice you would give someone today.
Good question. I would say start with what's your overall goal and what's relative for you. Don't think too much about what other people's paces are, how far other people are running. Think more about why is it that you're running and what is it that you want to achieve. So for me, it's about keeping mentally refreshed, giving me that time, staying physically fit as well. And then it was good for me to have two things in the calendar for me to really target my training on. So that's what I wanted to do. So I'd say think about what's your why. So why do you want to take this up, and then what do you want to achieve? And then don't think about other people. You don't have to share it with anyone. Just keep that, because even when I did Stockholm, I didn't tell many people, I think, if anyone, what my target time was. So I was quite strict to myself in that. So I'd say, yeah, make sure that's quite personable and relative to you. And equally, I read somewhere when I was doing if you're doing marathon training, then don't think that every training run that you're going to do is perfect to feel like you have to compensate for it. Because I had many a time where I'd do a run and I felt absolutely horrible during and after, and I thought, right, that's my training program gone to plan. But when I sort of read up on it, I realized how common it was. I think be kind to yourself and don't take one bad run as being the be all or end of it, and equally don't take one good run to be the be all or end of it as well.
Agreed. Any guidance as to how they can get started?
My guidance would say I prefer running outside, so find a good running route, something that you're quite comfortable, happy with. And now, I wouldn't have said this maybe 6 months ago, but find a good running club that you can click with, run people with, because I think having that social element definitely helps, and it makes it a lot more engaging and fun. So those would be my two bits I'd say to people. And don't worry too much about, I know everyone says if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen. Like, yes, if you want to if you want to jump on Strava or Runner or whatever else is out there, then great, equally can, but don't feel compelled to equally. I don't have Strava. I've got my own app where I just trace my own times and see how it is. Don't feel the need to share it with anyone. So do, like I said at the beginning, do what's right or comfortable for you.
Does that mean we can't find you on Strava if you wanted
Unfortunately, no, not on Strava, but I wouldn't be surprised if I succumb to it and join.
Oh no, fight it off if you've held it back so far, I would say. But you know what? I give you some credit for that, because almost everyone's on there.
Yeah, it's the place to be.
Okay, great. So if you were to, taking that advice in mind and that guidance that you would offer someone today, what would you do differently if you were able to go back?
I would
not that you're not able to change the way you go forward now, but suppose you had the time back.
Time again, I would have spent more time concentrating on my longer runs pre-Stockholm. I would have spent more time taking on board fuels and knowing what worked for me, what gels don't for Stockholm as well. And I think for Berlin, or for the preparation for Berlin, I would have, I changed my, I changed the running vest that I was actually going to run with the day before. And I think that really hampered me. And that was quite bad, because whilst it was comfortable, I was fidgeting with it for a while. So I think make sure that you're comfortable with the kit and your equipment that you're running with, which I was perfectly fine with for Stockholm. But I think making that last late change in Berlin was probably something that was quite bad. And equally be kind to yourself throughout all of it. Don't be too hard on yourself, whether it's a marathon, whether it's you're just running for fun. Be kind to yourself all the way through would be my overall counsel.
One thing that I came across recently, now I know majority of what we've spoken about today, given your experience and other events that you've been a part of, but our prime focus here has been Berlin, which is great, and I wanted to do it that way. I kind of came across this kind of reel recently where one person said, "Well, I'm quite upset at how I'm hearing about all those runners who ran Berlin recently, so upset and disappointed with their time." And the question from them was that, why do you think that is? Do you think that 42K has been normalized? And that the response I was quite surprised about was, yeah, it has been normalized. That's what it is. Do you agree with that? Like, have we started, not we as in me and you, but in general, have we started to just think 42K is like not a not a walk in the park, but it's much easier than we would have thought back in the day or before our first marathon?
It's a good point, and I think it is. I like when I saw there's a big difference between Stockholm and Berlin and London years ago, but I guess timing for that probably not surprising. That the number of, and I use this term loosely and with the utmost respects, the number of, say, influencers or people who were recording themselves whilst they were running, during they were running, and afterwards, and making sure they're dressed in like top toe in the right gear was quite stark compared to what I found in Stockholm. So I think it's great that there are loads of people running, but I think invariably that then deems it right. A marathon isn't as hard as it is. So yeah, I think there probably is an element or an aspect of that. But for me personally, I think it's more the fact that people said, right, Berlin's flat, Berlin's going to be really cool. So you'll be able to beat your PB. If you're ever going to set a PB, Berlin's a place where it could be. So I think
Exactly.
that's probably
Yeah.
the bit for me that weighed on my mind. But I was quite strict to myself. I was like, no, take stock as to what you've done, look at it from a wider standpoint, and realize the accomplishment of it. And like, whether the time comes at another marathon or not, then it does or it doesn't. But it's more so the accomplishment in itself, I think, is something not to be too disheartened upon.
Yeah, I guess just like everything else in life, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, right?
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, so what's on your schedule coming up? Got anything planned going forward?
So I've got the Battersea half in a few weeks. So I'll be doing that. Don't really have a target time in mind. So I'll be running that, which I'm looking forward to. And then one of my good friends, he ran Copenhagen, I think last year, and he did he just missed out on sub 4. So I think we're hoping to try to do a marathon next year at some point together and to try to get sub 4. So yeah, haven't picked anything in mind yet, but that's something that we'll aim for. So yeah.
Is the Battersea half going to be your close for the year?
Yeah, that'll definitely be my close year. Then I'll be done for the year and then get back into a light training if I'm able to get something in the first half of next year in terms of another marathon.
When is Copenhagen next year?
So Copenhagen isn't something that we've booked. I think it's something that is done. So we'll probably look to do something different, but equally we need to find somewhere which aligns with both of us in terms of diaries and training, etc. So still TBC as to which one we're going to run next year and when it will be.
Are you going to continue with 2 a year?
No, I think I'll probably stick to one. Yeah, and then go all out for it. I think especially whilst I'm looking to get my sub 4 in mind. Once I've got that, then I'll be happy, and then maybe ramp back up to 2. But let's see, we'll take it race by race.
Cool. No, good way of thinking about it. Last question for you. Would you run London and Berlin again, and all Berlin again?
I would definitely do London again. I wouldn't do Berlin again. I'm like once and done. I think, yeah, I don't have anything more that I'd want to try to get from Berlin. So I think Berlin I'm good with, but London I would love to do again.
You wouldn't want to give that flat fast another
No,
go.
I will aim for that somewhere else. I think Berlin, I've been there, it broke me, I finished it. I will not be going back there again to run.
Yeah, if I was to be totally honest, I'm in two minds about it. But I'm not. It's not one of those where I'm just going to head back there next year just to I don't know, if it went wrong, would I want to write it? I don't know. I don't want to say that it went wrong to begin with. Like I would just fall back on what we just said a few moments ago, that it was supposed to go the way it did. Yeah, just need to come around to that and accept it.
Yep.
Azhar, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, lads.
It's been great talking to you further off the back of first meeting in the expo. Yeah, all the best for your plans further on. Let's stay in touch, and hopefully we'll be hoping for your sub 4 coming your way very soon.
Thank you very much. Cheers, lads.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you on another episode of Running 101 very soon.